Welcome to Love Letters, Life and Other Conversations. Hello, Wendy. How are you?
Hello, Jane. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm very well since I saw you this time yesterday.
I know. It's so great. I could do this every day.
There's an idea. Maybe we could do a 7-day challenge or something.
We're full of good ideas.
I know.
Yes.
I know. So just to fill everyone in as
Please
to
do.
what we're doing today, we just thought it might be a bit of fun. First of all, thank you so much to all of you who have been downloading our podcast, Love Letters, Life and Other Conversations. We're overwhelmed, aren't we?
We are.
We are really overwhelmed and humbled. We cannot believe.
I have no words.
I think we're getting close to 3,000 downloads.
What a gift.
Who would have thunk?
I thought it was going to be you, me, and my mom.
Oh, yeah. And if my mum was alive, it would have been my mum as well.
For sure.
And my kids were forced to listen to it.
Oh, right.
So anyway, Wendy and I thought it would be a little bit of fun because, as we say in the podcast, we do these podcasts and they're not really edited. I mean, unless Jane makes one of her great faux pas in terms of my pronunciation of something that's tricky, we really don't edit, do we?
I don't think
so. We thought it would be really a lovely idea to come on Thursday today and show you how we do it. So Wendy chooses every other time and I choose every other time. So and typically we don't know what each other is going to present. Disclaimer, I did send this little piece to Wendy 10 minutes ago, just so that she has it in front of her. So because it's quite a detailed passage and I thought she did need to have it in front of her to reference back. And because we're live, we're usually both scribbling notes as the other one is talking or presenting the springboard that then becomes the love letter that becomes the springboard for the conversation. A little bit of background, Wendy.
Yes, dear. I'm so eager because I
love that you call me. I love that you call me dear.
You are.
My grandmother called me dear.
Oh.
I don't think anyone's called me dear since. I have a handful of people that call me darling, but I don't have anyone else that calls me dear.
Well, I only call Keith darling.
Yes.
So that name is already taken. So dear is available.
Okay. Well, I feel very privileged that you call me that because it does remind me of my maternal grandmother who used to call me her little dear. I know, it was really cute. So I have a gorgeous friend, Gretchen. You know I've spoken about Gretchen. You haven't met her yet, but you may well meet her when you next come over.
Fantastic.
And Gretchen is from Philadelphia. She's in HR. Her work is the emotional well-being of 1,800 employees, I believe.
That is a tall order.
It's a tall order. And during 2020, when we're all in lockdown, and I don't mind saying I went through a massive crisis, which I think has led to great personal growth. That was probably
usually the way.
Yeah, which
there has to
probably
be a catalyst. There's no change. There's no change without a catalyst. Because there's no reason.
No. So as I sat procrastinating, going deeper and deeper down rabbit holes, wondering what on earth I was going to do with my life if I couldn't have any face-to-face humans anymore, Gretchen and I were talking quite regularly, and she sent me a book by, his pen name is Young Pueblo. And Young Pueblo in, I think it's Portuguese, but I might be wrong about that, means young people. So that just gives you a little bit of background. And this is one of the, and it's one of those books, and I will put a link up on my Instagram.
Great.
And we'll also put it on the show notes. We'll get
Yes,
KB
we
to
will.
put it on the show notes.
Thank you, KB.
Thank you, KB. She's really the boss of us. She sent me one of his books, and it's one of those books that might sit on your bedside table and you just dive into it. What I do with it is I just flick it open to a page. I also follow this young guy, Young Pueblo, on Instagram, and every day there is a lesson. And this is the one that I want to read today. And I want to, as a precursor, say that I have chosen this because I think it's got some lovely, juicy conversation in there. But I want to look at it not only in terms of your partner, your husband, your wife, your lover, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is. I want to look at it in terms of friendships and connection with everyone in your life rather than just your partner. So
Sure.
with all that hoo-ha before, I'll read it to you. Find a partner who realizes how their emotional history impacts the way they show up in your relationship. They don't need to know themselves perfectly or have healed all their old hurt. They just need enough self-awareness to see when their past is getting in the way of loving you right. They know that rough emotions from the past have a way of twisting the mind so that it tries to cause unnecessary arguments. Together, you lean on honesty with yourselves and each other to help get you through difficult moments, and you support each other whenever old pain needs attention. You both wholeheartedly agree that loving each other incredibly well and healing yourselves should be your top priority.
Wow.
Can I say one other thing?
Would you
And
please?
Then I'll hand over to you.
Oh, I'm taking it all in.
Around about the same time that I was given this book by Gretchen, I was also writing what I now call I Want More the Next 30 Years.
Interesting.
I think you and I met maybe 6 months after I had written that. And I don't even know whether I've shared that with you, or did I when you were here? No. In March, I'll definitely share it with you. It's very funny though, because one of the biggest things that I wrote in my I Want More the Next 30 Years was this idea of checking in on each other. And I say in that, I call it my manifesto. I Want More the Next 30 Years.
Don't whisper that. You say that loud and proud. Do you know, sorry to interrupt you, but not sorry. I heard a statistic that only 5% of people know what they want. So the fact that you know what you want, and not only do you know it, but you have articulated it, you've written it down,
I'm teaching it as a course.
You're honoring it. All of that has been an invitation for other people to do the same thing. It's beautiful. We should all have a manifesto. Please get a manifesto if you don't have one. Yeah,
I think it's you know, and I get people that write to me every day, send direct messages or emails and say, what possibly more could you want? But they've missed it. And I politely write back and say, well, it's certainly nothing material. There is one material thing on there, which is a bit of a giggle. It's a stove that I want. And I say halfway through the whole thing, which is very emotional and very much about connection and friendship and love and honoring all of those things. I say, and I want in my fabulous kitchen a La Cornue stove. And I'm sorry, I'm not apologizing for that. I really do want one day. But getting back to this just spoke to me so loudly, because in my I Want More the Next 30 Years document, I write, we will check in with each other every single day, regularly, I say. And then ... I don't know what that means. Maybe that means every single day. We've all got stuff. We've all got baggage. We've all got things that we need to heal from that have affected us, either in our childhood or in our adolescence or in our 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, it just keeps happening. We hurt. We're humans. We have joy and we have terrible hurt, and sometimes those things play into the way that we connect with other human beings. And this just, it almost was it was, when I read it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I wrote in my I Want More the Next 30 Years. It was almost as if it was a validation of what I had written.
Right.
In the most, it slapped me in the face. And I had to actually go back to my I Want More the Next 30 Years and look at what I'd written, and then look at what he had written. And this one came out just last week on his Instagram. So I'd never read it before, and I checked the book, and it wasn't in the book. I just love it. And I think there's so much in there, Wendy. Where shall we start?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so I do not have it in front of me because it's on my phone, and I'm with you on my phone. Okay. And I also think that I only have the first part of it, where it ends with loving you right. So would you do me a favor? Can you read it again? I've made some notes.
Well, let's take a little bit at a time, shall we? Is that a good idea? Find a partner. Now, I want to expand that.
Yes.
Find a partner, find a friend, find a sister, find a brother, doesn't matter who the relationship's with, an uncle, an aunt, a grandparent, who realizes how their emotional history, well, obviously you don't get to choose your grandparents, but you do in friendships, you do get to choose your friends, who realizes how their emotional history impacts the way that they show up in your relationship, in your friendship, in your connection, right?
Right. I would like to expand that even to how we love ourselves.
Oh, I was going to say that as well. I think that is probably the number one thing that I got from this. How do you show up for yourself? You know,
with all of that conditioning and all of that history and all of that baggage, as you are just evolving and being committed to your own personal development, you are, there's so much resistance, and you start thinking, who am I? Who am I to have a manifesto? Who am I to get to decide what I want? I live in a chateau, for God's sake. How could I possibly want anything more? No.
But you know, when you write a document like that, you actually dig quite deeply down into things that have affected you, you know, whether it was something that happened, you know, a conversation that happened. Look, as I wrote that manifesto, and I'm not going to go into details about this, but I wrote it, and there were things that just kept coming through and coming through the whole time. There was an incident when I was 5 years old with my little sister. And it was, I think I have told you the story of the Mother's Day card, which is a whole other story, which maybe one day we could do a love letter about adoption. I think that would be really lovely.
I think so.
As you and I have an adoption connection, really, don't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
There was another incident when I was about 14 with a girlfriend who basically stopped being my friend because she had an older brother and there was a group of cool kids that she all of a sudden got invited to parties, and I got dumped like a pancake. I don't think I ever really got over that rejection. And then there was a conversation with my mum. These are three really poignant things that happened.
Right.
Now, there would be people that might be listening thinking, oh, gosh, they don't seem like such bad things. It
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter what it is.
It's
People
all the emotion is the same. Rejection is rejection. It doesn't matter what the circumstances were. Loss is loss. Joy is joy.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the emotion itself and how it made you feel, how it makes me feel, how it makes all of us feel is the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking at the way that shows up in the way that we connect with others, but also in the way that we connect with ourselves. If you have had rejection, then you're going to tell yourself, oh, I won't put myself out there, or I won't do that, or I won't be brave, or I won't tell that person how I feel because I will get rejected. But also with friends and with partners, the same truth can be told. But the big thing is, of course, when you realize that you have this issue and you turn up with that issue. Hey, I'm going to be really vulnerable here and I'm going to tell you something. I'm fully prepared for you to reject me. But I'm also open to the world of possibilities that you may.
And
right?
I'm holding your hand. I'm safe.
Yeah.
You can tell me.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the next line. They don't need to know themselves perfectly.
Right.
And we don't need to know ourselves perfectly either, or have healed all of their own hurt. You know what? When I read that, I thought, I hope the day I die, I haven't healed all my own hurt. Because I think that during COVID and last year and into the future, I finally, at the ripe old age of 57, realised that hurt is actually great.
It's a catalyst.
Yeah. It's like a wake-up call.
Right.
Ooh, you are human, you are alive, you can feel.
Yes.
Really. So love that. Do you want to say anything at this point, Wendy?
I do. So, in thinking about what you were talking about, so our past hurts and how they can come to play. And, when I did read and when I hear these words, I am actually going, to my marital relationship first. And it's interesting because I was just having a conversation about this, which of course is just the synchronicity of all this goodness, is that I've told you this before, I was married to another person who was flamboyantly unfaithful to this ridiculous living.
I love that he's flamboyantly unfaithful.
Flamboyantly unfaithful, yes.
Oh my gosh, I've got to write that down.
Yes, and that's tragic and sad, and for him. And so that became, because that was my experience when I met and married this fabulous prince of a guy, that became the bar of what was clearly unacceptable. So anything that wasn't that by default became okay, maybe not my favorite, maybe, he works long hours. Well, at least I know he's really at work, so that's okay. He misses these, we don't have dinner together. We don't, whatever the things are, we're in this constant, well, I will speak for myself. I feel like I'm in this constant spin of, like I want to believe that everyone has the best intentions, and I don't want to be the person that requires anything of anybody because I'm nice and I just want you to come home and, whatever, tell me I look cute today. Like you start to have like such a low bar of what you need because you don't want to be needy. I'm saying you, I'm meaning me.
But Wendy, we've talked about this.
Oh gosh,
we don't have you and I don't have low bars anymore.
Not anymore. And that's the thing. Like it's totally okay until it's not. And now it's so talking about this in the lens of friendships and in the lens of romantic relationships, as we evolve in our own development, things change, and there's social contracts that we signed, and emotionally, figuratively, and now I'm not showing up the way I promised to show up because I said, hey, as long as you don't flamboyantly be unfaithful to me, I'm down. Like we're good, don't worry. And now I have more requirements of myself. I have more requirements of my friends. I have more requirements of the people I'm in close relationship with. I have more requirements of my husband. And I crave requirements of myself too. Like I am so committed to being the best version of myself that I actually want to know, do you see something in me that is not pretty, like good, that's not like can align? Do you see something in me that you think, that's so funny because I know what's important to you, yet you do ABC? Oh my gosh, please tell me what ABC is. I want to like just get a flashlight in all those shadowy sides and let's just fix the stuff and do the work. And
you don't only require the self-awareness of your husband, that he have the self-awareness to come to you and lay on the table what it is that's getting in the way of loving you right. You have the same requirements of yourself.
Yes. And it's not an inquisition. It's an invitation. It's an invitation for us to both grow. But in regardless of the relationship, is it emotionally uncomfortable? Oh, yes, it is. And when you are on this journey, you just have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
But don't you think that after you've been uncomfortable a few times and you've really allowed yourself to be that vulnerable creature, it becomes less scary?
Yes.
I'm just not afraid of saying anything anymore.
Well, and I think because you're not just spouting off and being a jerk and requiring everybody else to change and get in line. It's like
Hey, I've been on the phone this afternoon to my son, having one of these conversations. He asking things of me and I'm asking things of him. And we've always had a very deep connection. But I said, "Oh, darling, we went a bit deeper today, didn't we?" He said, "You wouldn't have thought we could you? Would you?" We ended up playing favourite songs to each other. Oh my gosh, one we are so doing as a podcast together, Wendy.
Fun, okay.
But I dancing around the room, him dancing around the room, singing to each other after a really, really intense hour-long conversation.
That's beautiful.
And it was beautiful. Yeah. And that was both of us knowing that the rough emotions from the past have a way of twisting the mind so that it tries to cause unnecessary arguments. Our conversation wasn't an argument, but he had had an argument with another member of our family. So we were really delving into that. I'm all about talking about being kinder,
Yes.
being truthful, being raw, being honest,
Right.
but let's be kind.
In kindness.
So if we sit down to have hard conversations, let's be kind. Let's not raise our voices. Let's just be kind and forge forward.
Right. And it takes practice, and that's not a 5-minute conversation.
Oh no. He was in tears today. I was in tears. I love that. We lent on each other with honesty, with yourselves and each other to help get you through difficult moments, and you support each other whenever old pain needs attention. I love that. Whenever old pain needs attention.
Right. Which is, yes. Because I feel like for me, if I have something that, it feels really big and I'm uncomfortable and I need to be vulnerable and I need to say the thing, the person that's hearing it is hearing it through their filter of how much love they have for you. And I have to trust that my vulnerable conversations will be received in the way that I would receive the information from this other person, and just hold it in this sacred, safe space. And once you get it out of your body, it loses its power and it can't make you sick.
That's right. That's exactly right. You both wholeheartedly agree that loving each other incredibly well and healing yourselves should be your top priority.
Yes.
And see, that line to me is not just your romantic partner.
Absolutely.
That's your kids. That's your people.
Right.
That's your, I said to Lockie on the phone today, we were talking about friendship, and I said, darling, you are so lucky that about to turn 30, that you understand so much.
Right.
I didn't understand what you're talking about until well into my 50s, I don't think. I said, so, rather than seeing it as a negative, you should be seeing it as the greatest joy and the most wonderful thing that you have come to this conclusion, and you've come to these revelations so much earlier in life. And if you can count, I said, or even one real friendship, one real connection, then you're the luckiest person in the world. I'd rather have one real connection than 25 surface.
Sure. Absolutely. And you said something so interesting toward the beginning of our conversation about, I think it was from your manifesto, about checking in. And I just think it's that maintenance, because just like if you all of a sudden lost 30 pounds, you cannot, just because you have one conversation or you reach one goal, you can't just go back to the way it was after the one thing. Like it's maintenance. And maintenance
is really important.
Right. And it can be done with joy and love and passion and all of the goodness.
It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be huge. It might be a note. It might be a WhatsApp message. It might be a voicemail. It might be a telephone conversation.
Sure.
That's a lovely long one. Or it might be a 30-second one. Just checking in. Just want to, tell you that I'm thinking of you.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it is, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. Maintenance is so important.
And different relationships require different levels of maintenance, of course. Like you don't have to, we're not in elementary school. My best friend doesn't have to play with me every recess, or else she's not my best friend anymore.
No. Brené Brown There's a fabulous podcast, and it's called Big Friendships.
Okay.
I
You've
encourage
told
you
me
to
about
listen
that
to it.
before, and I have not listened. I will.
It is wonderful, and it talks about the maintenance and the importance of maintenance. And, you know, I mean, she's talking about adult friendships. I totally agree with you about, you know, the schoolyard. But we just all acknowledge that we're talking about adult friendships and the maintenance that is required.
It's true. Okay, I'm going to look at my notes. Oh, so there was a sentence in there about someone loving us right. Would you mind reading that for me?
I'm going to read that to you again.
Thank you.
They don't need to know themselves perfectly or have healed all their old hurt. They just need enough self-awareness to see when their past is getting in the way of loving you right.
Who defines right?
You define right.
That's right.
You define right. But also, if you're checking in with one another regularly, then the two of you should know what right is.
Right, because they also are defining right for them.
Yeah, and that's all about boundaries, right?
That is correct, ma'am.
So the checking in and the maintenance leads to boundaries, which leads to both parties knowing what right is for them in their relationship.
And also being available to, if necessary, for the relationship, work on that definition. So if, for example, the right way to love me is based in my fear of what happened in my first marriage, that's not, just because that's right for me right now in my emotional state, is that the most healthy way to live my life? And is that fair to my husband? No. So, you know, there's some continued vulnerability. It's not, ooh, I found this quote on Instagram and it says, you're supposed to love me right. Yeah. Awesome.
And they're not always as long as this. Most of the time they're just one sentence long, but that one really, really impacted me. I'll just read to you what he says about that little quote. He said, self-awareness is the most essential component of emotional maturity. It has the power to reduce unnecessary arguments, and it opens the door to new wisdom.
Oh, please read that again. That is rich.
Self-awareness is the most essential component of emotional maturity. It has the power to reduce unnecessary arguments, and it opens the door to new wisdom.
Mic drop. Done. So good.
Okay, Wendy, your takeaway from today's little conversation.
So good. These always go so fast.
I know.
I loved it. I loved it. My takeaway is how, and you mentioned this as well, but just how applicable this principle is to all of our relationships, including the one that we have with ourselves. And
I think particularly.
Which all.
But I'm, you know, I'm on a self-love journey at the moment.
Hey, I am. You're conducting that train. I'm in the very first car. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I think we might be co-pilots.
Okay. Well, we're driving this train to good places. That is for sure. But
exactly.
I love that self-awareness is the most important component. It absolutely is, because we don't want to spend our days saying, well, if you only did this, and if you only did that, or worse, if he only did this, because I'm talking to everybody else except to the person who is involved. It does nothing. It does nothing except for what my mom would say. So my mom always used to tell me, you have to be careful what you say about other people, because you are, for example, if I was complaining about somebody to you, I'm sowing seeds of bitterness in your garden. And so now all of these weeds are going to grow. This bitterness is going to grow in you about this other person because of what I said. And if I later resolve it with that other person, then she said, I have to go back to everybody's gardens and pull all of those weeds. So if you don't want to pull all the weeds of the seeds of bitterness that you sowed in all of those other gardens, just have the conversation, use your words with the person. Of course, have community, have a support system and all of that, but don't have that as a replacement or exclusively to working on the relationship that actually is requiring this work.
Exactly.
How
you want to know my takeaway?
All day long, I want to know your takeaways.
I just love history, impact, relationship. What's the history? How is it impacting us today? And how is it impacting our connection, our relationship, our friendship? What is it? And, I think my people all know what part of my history impacts who I am and how I turn up for my people. And I think that's the most important thing, is to, be vulnerable, let your significant person, people know things that are scary or vulnerable about you, and let them then show up for you, knowing that history, because I think that's all part of the healing process. It doesn't have to be talked about every time you sit down for a cup of tea. Oh,
please.
Your brother putting you up in the treehouse and holding you by the piggy tails, or that, abusive teacher that you had at school. I mean, I'm not talking about rehashing, but I think if you let people in and you let them know what you've been through, what scares you, what has impacted on you, then you can only have a better connection. So, yeah.
May I add something to that?
Yeah.
I think there's something that comes right after that as well. Once you take your 20 seconds of courage and say the thing, then you have an opportunity, a responsibility to do what we talked about last time, and that is to hold that posture required for receiving, because you've invited somebody in. You have to let them in. And when they say, oh my goodness, Jane, I'm so sorry that happened. Thank you for sharing. Oh, no. It's not a big deal. It's just fine. It's, it's just my weird, no, just say thank you. Like, let them hold this sacred space for you, this sweet container for you, because then they're going to trust that you're going to hold it back for them. Exactly. We have to be willing and open and available to receive.
That's right.
And that's
so the history impacts on the present.
Right.
And the present and the way that we deal with the present is everything for the future.
What a gift.
I know. I've loved this conversation today. I hope everyone has enjoyed it who has listened. And they will
Yes.
see now that this has been recorded and will now be turned into one of our podcasts.
So fun.
And anyone that's been listening, you'll see we don't edit.
You were here for it. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Yes, thank you, everyone. It was so lovely. We loved having you, and maybe we'll do this again, Wendy.
Right. And we've got big plans for a special Valentine's Day week.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Well, we are called Love Letters, Life and Other Conversation.
We are. It's our holiday.
It is. Have a lovely day, Wendy.
Thank you, my dear. You do the same.
The sun's gone down. I'm sitting by the fire. I'm going to have a little bit of dinner, and then I think I'm going to have an early night.
Lovely.
It's almost 6 p.m. here. Thanks for another gorgeous conversation. And thank you, everyone that joined us today.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Toodaloo.
We have loved this conversation and sharing this love letter with you, and we would like to invite you to send us your love letters. Visit the link in the show notes to send us your letters and to join our email list. See you next week.